Hi, 7th grade. Welcome to week 5. All right, we're moving forward with a lot of our living science. So we are officially done with the human body. So reminder, if you didn't take your quiz, you need to email me and let me know so I can open that back up. But 7th grade is amazing and you guys should have already done it. So cross fingers that we had all luck. So what we're moving into over the next couple weeks is animals and plants, basically. So we've been learning a little bit about animals and plants throughout the year, but now we're diving more into ecosystems, populations, biomes, different things of how living things, organisms, interact with the world around them. So what we're doing today is I'm going to be introducing some new words that are important for you guys to know, and we're kind of finishing up our curriculum at this point. So we're going to be doing some ecology studying over the next couple weeks. So, and you're probably thinking, what is ecology? Well, good thing, because that's one of your vocab words. So get your notes ready. Ecology. And if I misspell anything, I do apologize. Ecology, okay, is the study between, I'm going to put BW for between, to make it faster, write your note, an organism and its environment. So remember, ology always means study up. Eco means earth, basically, one version of earth. So it's the study, ology, between organisms and environments. So it's figuring out how does us as humans work and interact, do things with the world around us. Like, how do we respond to God's creation? It's probably the best way to put it. Okay, so when it comes to ecology, we start studying what we call ecosystems. We break it down. So that's another vocabulary word you guys are going to have. So I'm going to add under ecology, ecosystems. Now, you probably, I hope, have been introduced to ecosystems way back, even since kindergarten. But 5th grade is when you really start diving into ecosystems, like what's made up with the food webs, the food chains, carnivores, omnivores, herbivores. We're not going to go into all of that. What we're doing is what's part of the ecosystem, or what qualifies for actually being considered interacting. Ecosystems, what are they? They include all organisms and environments. So when I say environments, it could be the underground part, it could be the sky, it could be the trees, it could be the ground. I mean, there's a lot of environments within an ecosystem. So if you think forest, or rainforest is probably better. I mean, there's always something happening at the top of the trees, the middle, down below, basically. But we'll get into that next week. So sorry, I got sidetracked. Ecosystems includes all organisms, environments in a certain area. All right, and when I mean certain area, the area can be any size, literally. It could be your backyard, and a lot of backyards are different sizes nowadays. Or it could be the entire ocean. It just depends on what we're talking about or what we're trying to study at that time. So it's whatever I put forward. Remember, it does not have to be a certain size. It just is about the interacting of all these organisms, all these species, interacting in different environments within a certain area. Okay? Now, with that being said, there are so many ecosystems in our world that we call it the biosphere. You probably have heard this word sometime in your career. We learn more about it in 8th grade when we start talking about the earth. But the biosphere. Okay? This is every living ecosystem on earth. So every living thing on earth is included. So the environments, the living organisms, their facts, their actions, whatever it is that they do. It includes the living and the non-living. So when I say environment, we're saying non-living, we're talking like rocks, air. So it's everything that's in the ecosystems makes up the biosphere. So all of them. So we'll break down more of like what kind of ecosystems and biomes. there are next week, but this is just an introduction to go, okay, I am looking at this now. So, with that being said, the biosphere has living and non-living things. There are scientific words that go with living and non-living. When you're in 5th grade, and younger, Jonah just got done learning about living and non-living things in science. You start learning from a very early age that what is it that is considered living? Something that can grow, develop, needs to breathe, needs to eat, relies on energy, along those. Now, when it's non-living, it's something that basically is not alive. I mean, that's the same thing, right? But a great way to put it is, if it doesn't grow and develop and need air and water, then it's non-living. It's just going to stay like that for the rest of its life, I guess is the way to say it. But, okay, so there's 2 scientific words. The first one, I want you to put in number 1, is biotic. You might have even seen this word. It is a vocabulary word. Just kind of, no, it's not bionic. It's biotic, okay? It means anything that's living or once living. And when I say once living, that means that it's dead at some time or whatever, okay? Or a tree falling off, a leaf falling off a tree is biotic, even when it's no longer part of that tree, because it was once living. So now it's no longer able to retrieve those nutrients in the sunlight and the photosynthesis and everything, but it was once living at some time. So it's biotic. On top of that, we have what we call each organism. Organism is a plant and animal. Any living thing is an organism. Even bacteria is considered an organism. Each organism has its own role. All right, so you're a character in a play. Every organism is a character in the stage of life. Okay, so when it's biotic, it each has its own role. We call this a niche. Fancy word. Vocabulary word. A niche. Niche just literally means what that organism does. So if you think about it, possums, we had just a couple in our backyard. They're not really friendly animals by any means. If you come up close to one, they're just mean. But they're so important because they eat away at the bugs, like the ticks and everything that make up the backyard, in our environment. That's their role. So without those possums, if we didn't have them, we would probably be overrun by different kinds of insects and everything around here. So it provides a really good balance to the environment around in which they live. Okay, so in an ecosystem, each organism has its own role, niche, and own living environment, which we've referred to their living environment as a habitat. So that's another one of your vocab words, habitat. Okay, you probably are aware what a habitat is, but for when it's bionic and it's an ecosystem, a living thing in that ecosystem, each organism has a role that it plays, a niche, in its own habitat. So that habitat might be like a rabbit has burrows underground or a hole somewhere in a mountain, or not a mountain, but like a hill, and that's its habitat. It's where it lives. So, and then outside of it's one habitat where it lives. It's also anything it interacts with. So if it eats something, if something eats it, then that's all part of its habitat. With that, we have the one living organism. So if I go back to possums, possum is known as a species. Okay, so there's a bunch of different species that are living in a ecosystem. So if I go possum, you could go forest. So if the thing I'm studying the interactions of the forest ecosystem, and I'm focusing in on the possum, which is biotic, it's living, and I'm focusing on what its niche is. It helps eat bugs, insects, in its environment. So, and usually it's environments like more, sometimes the trees, but also on the ground. So it's like it's habitat where it chooses to live. It doesn't choose to go in the sky and live because it's not flying. With that, when you have the one species, then all of a sudden we start having all these species in the ecosystem in an area. It's known as a population. Okay, so to make this a little more understandable, a possum is a species. All the possums, all the different kinds there might be, or anything that's part of that family of a possum is part of the population. So it's, you want to think like city, which has a population of people. There are different populations of people. So there are some that might work for a living. There might be some who are drama people and like they work on stage. So we have different populations, like species of people almost. But that in the ecosystem, there's a bunch of different populations throughout. Now, when there's a lot of populations, different ones, then we start referring to that as a community. So, and this is the same thing as an ecosystem, guys. This is what an ecosystem is made up of. It's made up of the organisms, the living things that have their niche and their habitat and how they interact. But those species make up a population, a certain part of the ecosystem. And when we put all the population together, we create a whole community within the ecosystem. So you're thinking, if you think human beings, okay, we have our different populations that are around here. I mean, just think of your community and even just your neighborhood. Like who lives there, what lives there. There's like different ages, there's different income levels, there's different people who like things. Maybe there's some people who don't mow their lawn. That could be a species. But you know what? They all make up, all those different populations make up a community. And we here at Crown of Life even make up our own community. We have populations by grades. And then we have different grades that come together as a community. We are here for one another. So even like teachers, church workers, students, there's different populations. We all make a community together. So, but it's trying to figure out, ecology is trying to figure out how all these different populations work in community together to keep living. So they rely on one another. Now going back, I said there's biotic, there's living, and there's non-living. So the other one is known as abiotic. As you probably learned from Miss Hamry, means not. So it's very easy to remember, actually, for this vocab word. You have biotic and abiotic. Not living, non-living. That's easy. Okay, so in every ecosystem, we have living things, we have non-living things. And what qualifies for this? Here's your usual ones. Air, water, soil, so dirt, sunlight, it's all stuff that's not living, temperature, put temp, and climate. All stuff that can affect the ecosystem, but it's part of the ecosystem, part of the biosphere. So this is all abiotic stuff, abiotic, non-living, that is part of every ecosystem in some way or fashion. Okay? Even soil can be broken down and considered sand. So, all that wrapped around your head, it's like, whoa, I didn't know that this is what ecology involved. Yes, like honestly. Now, there are different levels of organization. We've talked about classification of living things. This is very similar when we had the domain, the kingdoms, the files, and sorry, I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. So within an ecosystem, there is the levels of organization. So we're going to take some of our vocabulary words and we're going to break it into the levels. It starts out with organization, so the ecosystem basically. And then it goes down to population. Oh, I missed thing. Not organization, organism. Okay, so it starts out with your organism, your living thing. So this is a summary of everything I've just said. It starts out with the organism. And then when you get a bunch of the organisms together, they create a population. Good. And when a bunch of populations get together, they create the community. And when you have a bunch of different populations together, the communities, so there's a bunch of different little communities, it becomes the ecosystem. So then we're into like what a forest is. And then on top of that, we go into biome, which is different parts of the world based on characteristics of that ecosystem that we talked about, the abiotic. But that's next week, so don't get ahead of me. And then the final thing is the biosphere. This is it, all right? So everything I've just been saying, this is what sums it up. We start with the living thing, okay, biotic. A bunch of those becomes a species, which is a population. Tons of populations working together, species in a community. A bunch of communities, so all these populations, little nicks hits here, become an ecosystem. A ton of ecosystems all throughout the world become a biome. So there's different parts across they just go all over the world. We'll go to that next week. And all of these put together creates the earth, the biosphere. All living and non-living things put together. Biosphere means the earth, circle of earth. It's probably, as a way to break down bio and sphere. So that's it. So that's like, where'd you get all that from? And everything. Well, that's what ecology is. It's the study of like how all of this actually takes place and how sometimes this relies on this and this, it just all goes together about how they interact. The populations always live close together and there's always going to be competition for resources. So that's something we will focus on as we go over the next couple weeks. But just keep in mind that there's a way that we have scientifically put together a way to see how does it all work? How did God put it all together? So we're literally studying God's earth, basically, and living creation. It's amazing. So what is required for you this week? Your experiment challenge is to get an empty bottle. Try building an ecosystem in it. Even if you put dirt in there and put a fish in there, lab points. Okay? So I have uploaded a website to help you guys with that. Your homework for this week. I want you guys to really focus on what is biotic and abiotic. So what you're going to do is there's a short reading passage. I think it's like half a page if I remember off the top of my head. And then there's like no more than 8 questions that goes with it. So you're going to read it and then you're going to really think through what is biotic and what is abiotic. So we're focusing in on these words and really digging into the study of ecology with all of this. Now, when I'm saying you're going to do this article, remember your complete sentences, remember those periods in capitalized letters, and really explain why. So I don't think there's anything else I have to say about that. So what's required of you this week? 1, take your notes. 2, do your vocab. 3, do your short reading homework and answer those questions. 4, explore some enrichment activities. No quiz this week, nothing extra, just our typical homework and vocab. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to call me. Feel free to message me, have your parents text me. We can set up Zoom, whatever is needed. And I'm more than happy to help you guys out. If you notice the link is not working, please let me know sooner in the week rather than later, so then that way we can address it right away. You guys have a great 5th week, and remember to breathe. School's almost out. You got a couple more weeks. You can do it. Bye.